So what I want to talk about a bit today is reader analytics, how to observe the way people actually read books. Because for the most part, books are still very much a black box. Historically, an author or publisher knew almost nothing about how individuals or groups read. Now, ebooks have made it possible to measure that, but the people who run ebook ecosystems, reading ecosystems, meaning Amazon's Kindle or Amazon's iBooks, for the most part, don't share that data, don't share that information with publishers and authors. So about almost exactly 4 years ago, Innovate UK, together with Random House UK, challenged startups, is there a way to come up with a way so we as a publisher can directly collect that data and understand our audiences? Back then I joked, no, it can't be done, but some people in this audience gave feedback and said, oh, maybe we could do it this or that way. And so we put in a winning proposal and then actually ended up building it. And building a system to figure out how many people who start a book actually finish it. How fast do they read it? Are they happy with it? Will they tell others about their experience? These kinds of audience questions. How does it technically work? First of all, this is exclusively EPUB free. We're probably one of the only companies who do not bother with EPUB 2 at all. We exclusively distribute and work with EPUB free. We have no choice. Because we build a piece of JavaScript software that we embed directly into the ebook itself, and that records the interactions of the ebook with the ebook reading app. When is the app open? When is a chapter opened? What is highlighted? When is someone reading? And that is stored into local storage on the user's device. There's no real-time interaction, which means it's very friendly on the battery lifetime. And also because third-party apps don't allow you to communicate out for security reasons. So how do we extract the data? We put a link at the end of each chapter. We styled it as a button and told the reader, who gets a free ebook from us, please click that link and send the data back to us. All the apps are happy with that. And this is also where we got lucky, because when he clicks it, we say thank you. But readers looked at that and said, every time I finish a chapter, the book says thank you to me. So accidentally, we gamified it. Sometimes you just get lucky. And so that's how we get all the data back. We have to dedupe and other things, but we get a complete reading stream from readers. At the moment, we support a bit over 12 EPUB-free reading apps. The number is constantly growing. It's getting better and better, I'm happy to say. And these are the apps we tell readers, these are the ones you can use so that we get your data back and we can evaluate it. Now, not everyone who signs up reads the book. People always have a bigger appetite than they have time. And sometimes people still cheat and use a Kindle app. It happens. But we get something like 55 to 65% compliance. And that's sufficient to do really good statistics. What you get at first sight looks maybe a little bit boring. This is one individual, actually it's two here in this example, how they read. For the upper one, you can see they pretty much read during the morning commute, always at very predictable hours. And the important fact here is we observe individuals. We can also see the stories of individuals. This is not just aggregate, and it's not anonymous. You can collect data in a GDPR environment and still know who the individual is and communicate that. More interestingly, sometimes is, of course, to know how does the group behave. So here's an example of a book, happens to be the Rosie Project, that has 80% completion rate. That's about as good as it gets. 20% decided in the first 5 chapters they didn't like the book. They didn't like it because there were too many swear words. This was Middle America, mostly. It was tested with US readers. But everyone else, after chapter 5, pretty much perfectly finishes the book. Now, this is a French book translated into English, American English. And the Americans didn't take to it, despite it being a Prix Goncourt winner. Too much sex, they said. So only 25% completion rate. Didn't do very well in the US. And that's what it comes down to. Can we measure engagement and predict how a book will do in the market? So today, one of the prime applications is for this as market research. Publishers want an ROI. You can never convince publishers technology is cool, you should just do it for that sake. But it's not just that we measure, there's a whole range of parameters, and with time we figured out that there were 5 key performance indicators, KPIs, that helped us predict the sale of a book. How many people finish the book? How satisfied are those people who finish with the book? Would they recommend it to others, so a form of the Net Promoter Score? Did the cover match the book? Did the cover set the right expectations? Covers can ruin great books. And also, how fast do they read it? Is a page turner, or do they have to really struggle to finish the book? And we can measure that objectively. By the way, when we do survey-based questions, if you would recommend it, we only take the data for those people where we can verify you finished. Because we find that people who do not finish completely spoil the results, so they're all eliminated. And then there's the special case of covers. As I said, covers can ruin a book, and it's sometimes very difficult to find the right cover for the content. Here's an example from Random House, 4 different covers for exactly the same book. This is one and the same piece of content. It's not just a matter of selection, it's also what a cover signals. What do you expect from the book? And does the book deliver that? And as we mostly do a kind of focus group format, how we distribute the books, we can also do A/B testing. So we can change the cover. Half the audience we test with gets one version of the cover, and the other half gets a different one. And we see how it affects the selection. In this case, one cover was much more popular than the other. And the publisher said, oh, that's because that's a younger cover, and you had mostly younger readers. We break it up and say, no, it was true for every audience segment that we tested. But not just that, their reading behavior was different too, depending solely on the cover. Cover influence if you finish, but especially how fast you read, and if you recommend the book. Think of it this way, when you recommend the book to somebody else, that other person is judging you on the recommendation. So if the cover doesn't fit or is not something suitable, you're less likely to recommend the book because you think you're judged as well on your recommendation. And you don't think consciously about it. This is entirely subconscious, but it's measurable in such a system. I have to hurry up because I've got not much time left. We've recently published a white paper on the 8 most common use cases of why publishers use it. It's mostly down to predicting market success. So we can tell by now a book, if the engagement is very high, and if one of the big publishers puts a big marketing budget behind it, it will get into the number 10 of the Spiegel bestseller list here in Germany. We have several examples of that. We also had the example of a publisher where we said this book will not do well, and they didn't trust us, went ahead anyway, put a lot of money behind it, and it flopped. So that is the counter example that even a big marketing budget will not solve the problem of a poor engagement or poor content. A few examples of who uses it. We got traction first in Germany, even though we are a London-based company. Maybe it's the German engineering attitude, or not sure, but it took off first here. Now we're doing more in the UK and US. In October, we will start in Spain. And it's been very much large publishers, because large publishers have books with big marketing budgets, big advances, so it's easier for them to figure out. Also, large publishers have much more of a portfolio effect and need to prioritize. A lot of it comes down, which books do I prioritize? And with that, I want to finish, and if I want you to remember just one thing, is we provide book candy, free books to readers in exchange for the data, and to publishers, we provide data candy. Thanks a lot. Or do we do all the questions at the end or now? Okay, anyone got a question? Go ahead.
So I guess your readers who sign up for this are
We have some very regular readers, but we also try each time to get half the readers totally new. We reach out through Instagram or Facebook and other channels, so we always try to mix it up. We ask in which channel, which genre people read, so we look and we segment accordingly, and we have some idea how often they read. And we will look at how each segment has different engagement parameters. Not enough time to show that, but it gives us a good handle on, is a book a really niche book that goes only against frequent readers or only frequent genre readers, or does it go deep into the mass market? All that's possible as well. The problem with recruiting test readers is people say, how do you get the perfect test reader? It's impossible because you don't know up front who the audience ideally is. So we always mix it, and we also encourage the publisher that we recruit readers outside the audience. So young adult will recruit older ones, always others, and measure, do they really not read it, or do they actually read it quite a lot? Publishers' notion of who their audience is not always accurate. And our approach to the perfect test reader is just to segment and track and look at each sub-audience differently and pinpoint where is the engagement high.
Okay. Thank you for inviting me over. So I take a more general approach. And it's also a little bit nostalgic because listening to the Tolino experience, which basically is my old baby, because my team was responsible for the launch of the Tolino back in 2013, and also quite a lot of the insights and what we learned from the market also had an effect now for our new project, which is called mojoreads. So for a start, we to tell people what is mojoreads, we always try to explain the big philosophy, and it never worked. So now when someone asks us what is mojoreads or what it's all about, we just say, okay, it's a book recommendation platform, and you as a user are able to earn some money on that platform. With that description, it works quite well because everyone knows what to expect. But now, when it comes to getting to know your user, the general approach I was talking about. Because if you look at the situation in the book market, so you have the value-added chain, you know you need to make some money from books. And so the traditional approach of the publishing industry, both from publishing side but also from the booksellers, is to focus on how do I make a sale? Be it hardware, be it the book, no matter the edition, so everyone is focusing on the sales process. But especially if you look at the digital world, as you all know here in the audience, this is where the actual need is. So the question for the user is, how do I make use of content? Because, okay, it's fine that I need to buy the content in order to use it, but what I'm really interested in as a user is I want to use that content. I want to do something with the content. Now also to the learnings from the Tolino Alliance and from having a very close look at the market. So what we discovered is that there is a certain attention circle. So first, of course, you discover a book, so you get to know that it exists. The second step usually is that you read an excerpt, you read some blurbs, you read some reviews, you look at the metadata in order to inform yourself about the content. If you like what you see, you buy the book. Then, of course, if you don't give it away as a present, or you never open it, you're supposed to read the book. And then, if you like it, you also share your passion. So you might share some quotes. I knew quite a lot of book bloggers who take photographs of their printed books and share them on Instagram or Twitter because they just like what they read, and so they share their passion. And if you really, really like the book, then you really spread the word, not only with tiny quotes, but then you might also write a review, you share your experience on social media, and by that, of course, get others to know about that book. So basically, it's it's two different elements which come together. One is that you yourself pay attention to some content. And the second part is that you also draw the attention of others to that content. And most important of all, at its core, it's all about the use of books, of the content, no matter the format. But especially in the digital world, and this is something especially booksellers tend to forget, is even though at the end someone orders a physical book and enjoys the physical book, in the digital world, the first contact is digital. So even though you might not be aware of it, but by reading an excerpt, be it in a shop or elsewhere, you're making use of digital content. So in fact, you're using a digital product even though you're not aware of it. This is why for everything, it's so important that you make that content usable for your audience. If you then try to break it down, so this entire attention circle, you will discover that basically the attention on the web is distributed to 3 different kinds of platforms. So the first question is always, how do I get to know about that content? The next question is, how do I get access to that kind of content? And of course, how can I actually make use of that content? Which translates to, of course, communities are very important in order to discover books. This can be general communities like on Facebook. It can be specialized communities like Goodreads, or in Germany we also have JellyBooks, as a company owned by the Holzbring Publishing Group, which is the most prominent one in Germany. Then, of course, you have the shops where you get the reading samples, because this is also quite interesting. Here, where you talk about the books and where you get to know about new books you might be interested in, so what everyone is talking about is not available on the platform. So even in order to get an excerpt to test read, you have to switch the platform and get into a shop where you get an excerpt, some test reading, and then again you have to switch the platform in order to actually read it, be it at home with the physical book or on a separate platform for your reading app. And if you look at the most prominent ones in the book market, of course, one of the only ones who really put together the entire puzzle is again Amazon, because in 2013 they bought the world's largest book community, Goodreads. Of course, they also own the Kindle platform. And what is interesting for me is that they didn't integrate those systems deeper into each other. So even within Amazon, you have to switch, and of course, there's also a break between those different platforms. You have to move from Goodreads to Amazon to Kindle and back to Goodreads. That's not what we call a seamless user experience. So when I say we, it's a group of 3 who started mojoreads, or the company behind is called Logos. The Greek term logos, not logos, the plural of logo, which is, initially we also wanted to call the product Logos, but no one understood it, so we decided that we need to have another product name. So even though the parent company still is called Logos, but now the product is called mojoreads, which works much better. So when we asked ourselves, okay, what do we do now? Knowing all of that, what are the key elements we need in order to make a difference in the market, and also to collect the valuable data? We decided we have to do all. So basically, the core product of mojoreads is a combination of both community elements, shop element, and reader element, which we're still not there where we want to be, but it's getting more and more smooth. We want to integrate it into a really seamless user experience. So every time you get across a book you might like, it just should take one click and you are in a reading sample, or another click to actually buy the book. And in order to make it a little more attractive for our users is that they earn a 10% commission on every book which is sold because of something you did. So be it that you wrote a review, that you recommended a book, or maybe just you shared a quote, or you curated a list and someone else discovered the book because of your list, of your recommendation, of your review. And if that leads to a sale, you get commissioned with a 10% commission fee, which is a strong incentive. On the other hand, what always was frustrating is those reading samples, which usually are separate files, mostly PDFs, mostly the first 10%. If you were a little bit unlucky, you had the table of contents and some preliminary words, but no actual content, which is a bad user experience. So we say, okay, even with us, you have 10% of those free test reading samples, but you decide where. It might be at the beginning, it might be somewhere in the middle, it might be somewhere at the end, just like in a real bookstore. You take a book, you open it at any place, you start test reading, and as soon as your 10% are up, you get a friendly reminder which tells you, we're very sorry, but free reading ends here. If you want to continue, please buy the book. And this also relates to that part, to share quotes, which was very hard to negotiate with the publishers, by the way. Because quite often, so I'm a publisher myself, when you read about current politics, other issues on the newspapers, you know, oh, I have a book or I have an author which is perfectly fitting, but damn, that interesting part is somewhere at the back of the book on page 565. So I can't just copy and paste the link and tell, hey, my author here says some very intelligent, but you first have to buy the book and find your way through. That's not how it works. So without technology, you can really share a quote from that passage you're talking about, and someone following that link gets a deep link into the book to the very passage you're talking about, so that you also get to know the actual context. So as you may can imagine, also keeping in mind what Andrew already told, is we gain quite a lot of data, and from different areas. Of course, we gain the data which Andrew was talking about from the reader, because as it is our own technology, we can measure the entire reading performance. We also get data from the shop. As you know, from Amazon, customers who bought this also bought that. We don't only know what they bought, we actually know what they are reading and in what context, and others who actually read the same book. But we also do get data from the social network. So all that talking about books, all that hints, all that relates to books, which means we get a lot of context. And this is important, not only because most of the traditional publishers or business people just think of a business value of that data. But the reason why we started with the Logos or mojoreads was not that we were interested in the business value of data, but we clearly see that kind of data, which is a collected knowledge of mankind, also has a cultural value. But that cultural value is of no value if that data just belongs to a single company, like Amazon, for example, which back then was the reason to quit the Tolino Alliance and start something different. So now, what we try to do is, this is why we are a social business. So we decided for a little complex structure. So we are governed by a non-profit association, which takes care of the cultural and political needs of society. So they also always have a veto right, and they are our governing body. On the other hand, we are a normal company, which is actually dealing with the product and the marketing. And on that side, we take care of the economic needs, especially of the business shareholders, stakeholders, which are, of course, the publishers and the rights holders. And the reason why we are doing that is, so this is the long-term mission, that our goal is really to democratize publishing and make big book data a community asset. So not only, of course, for publishers, the business side is as well as interesting as the other side, but what really intrigues us is that cultural value. Of course, we are still at the very beginning, and so the current state of the platform is maybe just a prototype, but that's the long-term vision about 20 years in the future, and we of course hope that we can accomplish our mission. So thanks a lot. Any questions? Yeah.
So there is one aspect which bothers me a little bit. We have seen all the dramas lately on the web with private data, with the problems around Facebook. Won't you run into the same kind of issues? And with GDPR coming on us in what, in a week, that makes it even more complicated.
Definitely. And this is a huge challenge as well. So one part, especially when it's a one very, very big decision, and what took us quite a long time before we even started was exactly the question. Just think or just imagine we are successful. And then what? Amazon comes around and says, hey guys, well done. I might be sick, I have children, I get an offer which I can't put down. What then? This is exactly the reason why we from the very beginning had the help of a lawyer to construct a legal system which protects the company or the entire organization from ourselves. So we have put it into our legal framework that we are not allowed to sell the company. And we have a shareholder's commitment to stay true to our founding values so that we really stay a mission-driven business and a social business. So this is a legal aspect which we took care of even before we actually started the company. And now when it comes to GDPR and all those privacy issues, so our approach is to really keep a balance. On one side, of course, private data of the user always should stay private data of the user. On the other hand, when you have statistical data, like Andrew pointed out, when we say, okay, we aggregate the data on a statistical level so that you get to know in what kind of audiences a book works really well, or about that kind of context. So this statistical data should be available to everyone. On the other hand, if you compare ourselves more like Twitter, which is aimed for publicity. So by having a public profile, by publicly sharing your thoughts on whatsoever content, of course others can come along and collect the data and also draw their own conclusions from that data. This is something we can't prevent. But especially when you talk about the privacy scandal of Facebook, so the real problem I see with Facebook is not that data somehow got out or someone analyzed the data. The real problem was that Facebook actually made their customers a target. So literally everyone could throw bullshit at my head because I'm part of the target group. So, and we decided also from our business model that we won't support any marketing-driven approaches. So you just can't buy your audience. So we don't bother our customers with advertising. We don't manipulate the timeline. So, and we try to implement measures and functionalities which hopefully in the end will lead to a more sophisticated debate, so that in the end not the one who is winning who shouts the most or has the most marketing budget, but hopefully the best argument.
My name is Konstantin, I'm from Skolio, and I want to share some thoughts with you about digital products. And I've been with tech things around like about 50 years now, building in the past software, today digital products. And the first question is, why I am standing here and discussing things like digital products on a publishing summit. The global ebook report from the last year said the first decade of ebook is now over and the second one begins, and it will be a digital one with digital products. And the most important thing is we will rescue the books from the boxes. And that's the reason why I will talk about digital products. And because I'm a tech guy, I will start with other digital products and will try to get some inspiration from the development in that area. And in the first moment, I want to start with an example. Who of you is still aware of Windows Millennium Edition? Just get your hands up. I don't know if Microsoft is in the audience. Microsoft stopped the support for Millennium Edition 1 or 2 years after launch, because Millennium Edition is something is some good visible breakpoint in how we deliver and build digital products. And this approach, which was very visible with Millennium Edition, I want to call it the 1.0 approach, and that was how we built software in the 80s, in the 90s, and so on. We built digital products. And this approach was something like that. A company or a team has an idea, specifies that idea and builds the product. And after building the whole product, the product is delivered to the consumers in order they would use, love, and tell others about that product. That was the era of a product being pressed on CD or on diskette discs, these 3.5 discs and so on, floppy disks, and shipped in boxes. Just keep in mind, we just want, in the second decade of ebooks, want to rescue them from the boxes. So software and other digital products are shipped in boxes as well. And a second thing from that area is the marketing approach. The marketing approach was something like very loud, very widespread. If you target as much people as possible, the right people will be in the audience as well. That was some kind of the marketing approach. And that was the whole 1.0 approach on building products in the 90s or in the 80s. This process visualization is inspired by a guy from the tech scene, by Jeff Patton, and the following considerations as well. The problem with that, and big fails showed that in the past, in the late 90s, is this idea has to be correct in the very beginning. Because you will build the whole product, digital product, basing on that idea. And if that idea is wrong, and the people don't use it, don't love it, and tell others only insults about that, you won't be successful. Okay. We tweaked that model a bit. In the late 90s, we shipped beta software to beta users and asked them to check if the software or if the digital product is right. That means the product 1.1, digital product building process was something that we create in the idea. We build nearly the whole product, ship it to beta users. They return their feedback. We build the final product and ship it to the final customers, the final consumers, hoping that they will use, love, and tell others. The problem is as well, if your idea is not correct and your beta group tells you your product is just crap, I'm not using it, you wasted a lot of money. Around 2000, new approaches were getting more and more popular, and these approaches, telling about books I love and tell you about their books, were inspired and documented in books like The Lean Startup or Getting Real. And the main concepts are things like validated learning, minimal viable products, and prototypes. And the new approach for digital products in a web, in our internet world are create an idea, define your hypothesis, what do I think is the problem of my consumers, what do I think do they love, build the smallest bit of it to test that hypothesis, give it to real users, and find out if they use it, if they love it, and if they will tell others. And that will continuously, will you go through that process. That means validated learning from Lean Startup, for example, means is my hypothesis right? And what's the smallest bit of product or whatever I can build to check that assumption. The main difference between 1.0 and 1.1 approach is, and this approach is, you have a continuous cycle of creating a hypothesis, building a bit of the digital product, and checking it. That's the build, measure, learn cycle from Lean Startup. And 2.0 means no boxes anymore. You're shipping continuously product enhancements to your consumers. You're not pressing on CDs and shipping boxes out to them. And the marketing is pretty different as well. You try to find a good target group and position your marketing to that target group and not addressing all the audience out there. This concept is nicely described, and Spotify coined a term for that. They call it think it, build it, ship it, tweak it. And that's the continuous cycle as well of building a bit, thinking a bit of product, building it, shipping it to the consumers, and trying it, measuring it. Is it the right one? That's the process of use, love, and tell others. What I am doing about things like Lean Startup and talks from Jeff Patton I've heard in the last weeks. So that means now we will leave the world of web digital products and regain the focus on books and digital publishing. That means we have to address a certain audience of people, and they should love our products, use and love our products, and we'll give them a megaphone to promote our products. What does that mean for publishing? And this one is inspired by a book, tell others, of David, and he describes 5 steps of digital publishing, from discovery to visibility to consideration to purchase to advocacy. But how can this process look like in a real example? The real example is there's Peter. He's a marketing guy in a little firm, and he's very skilled about every online marketing tooling he used in the past. But now he is interested in something like CRM marketing, just addressing new customers. It's not necessarily a publishing firm, it's a small firm. And the first approach of Peter is just opening a Google and typing in marketing CRM. And he hopes to find some blog posts or maybe something on Stack Overflow, on Twitter, or whatever, Facebook posts. And now we have his attention about that topic. And we are a publisher of business books and have a business books that focus on online marketing as a whole, that online marketing Bible, for example. And now Peter gets some kind of AdWords ad, and that says, okay, the topic you typed in and you're searching for, you're Googling for, there is a resource for you. And it's not a blog post or something like that, it's a real business book. And now he clicks on that and enters. He doesn't enter any product detail page or something like that. He enters the right chapter within that business book and starts reading the text sample. The first page, the first half of the first page or whatever. He's able to check if is this the content I would expect from my Google search I entered before. And this fits perfect well. It's the answer on his question, how to implement CRM marketing. And that means he continues reading, we have his attention and keep his attention, and he decides, that's the right book for me, I will buy that. And I will buy not the whole book, because I'm a real pro in online marketing things. I will only buy that chapter regarding CRM marketing. I don't know yet. What you need for that is you have to have a book in the browser to jump directly into the chapter. You have to have something like chapter-wise delivery of the content. You have to have something like mobile reading experience. Maybe he is Googling on his iPhone or something like that. And it's a good idea for him to buy a chapter for €8, for example, and not spending €80 for a book. Most of the parts you won't need. Okay, that's consideration and purchase. And David, which wrote the book I mentioned before, said, okay, the story is not over now. Now starts something like Andrew and Volker said, something like measuring. Is Peter reading the book? Reader analytics, but in a continuous way. That means I can check with new chapters, I continuously build my product. That means I have something like a Google Analytics for books, which tells me at every point in time how is the content being used on a statistical level, not on a personal profiling level, not as Konstantin reading this book, but how many % of the readers are finishing the book at the moment. And if I change the content, if I change my AdWords campaign, if I change the channels, the marketing channels for the readers to find the books, does the completion rate of the book, of the chapter, and so on, change by that? And for delivering all that user experience, we started nearly a year ago to build the solution called Scrollio. Scrollio is browser reading. That means you can jump directly into the book, and it's some kind of, it's delivering the content into the browser in a secure way. That means the browser holds just the information you can see, and forgets everything you have read and doesn't know the parts of the content you have not read before. It's some kind of like Spotify's music streaming for texts and pictures and so on. And it's possible to split the content in delivery unit, which means chapters or other parts of delivery units, not just unleashing the box. That means you can just ship parts of the book and not just the whole book. And as you can see here, by delivering to the web, it allows to build mobile-first applications, because you can just open a web link in your mobile browser, and it looks like on a desktop. And after that, you have something I called Google Analytics for Books, and that's our reader analytics dashboards, continuous reader analytics. And if you want to learn more about that, about the solution, the dashboard, and possible approaches with that technology, just visit our booth during the cocktail hour and we can have a chat about that. Thanks a lot.
Hello everybody, my name is Mouna Khalil, and I will talk to you about our new baby, Glyph, which is a mobile application, just like our colleagues. But I will talk about the specific subject, which is gathering data and retrieve data from users. And how to get useful feedback from the readers. We believe that using social interactions and social connections as a leverage is the key to have to have more and more data. How does it work? I will try, the cocktail is waiting, so I try to do it very quickly. After several A/B testing, we decided to work with 5 tags, 5 simple tags. I have it, wish list, which means I want to have it. I'm reading it now, already read, or I love it. And that's all. We tested more than 30 tags, the tags with 500 persons. And those ones are the simpler and works. How does it work? We use a batch tag interface that I will show you after that. And using this information, we send connections, social connections to users. Jennifer is reading the same book. Would you like to start a conversation? And of course, we have 25 combinations of those tags. For example, I have the book. You're reading it. You already have a book. I love it. Would you like to start a conversation? Would you like to see my whole library and get more info and get more recommendation? But the next challenge is that we're working on paper books, because it's 90% of the market now. And the next challenge is to move in the library from the physical world to the digital world. So how we do that? We do that, you all know the barcode scanner. So we try to enhance it to have a real-time barcode scanner with some gaming experience. So this is the first version which is running now. It's a real video, it's not a fake, huh? So you just need to film it, and it recognizes all the books in the real time. It works with comics. It's very easy with comics because it's thinner, so we can have more comics at the same time on the hand. So this is the first tool that we're using to move from the physical to the digital world. And after that, you move to the batch system, and you just need to tag your books with one of the 5 tags. Of course, you can do specific tags on each batch. Of course, the ISBN database is the only required thing. Second solution that we've developed, it's a patented bookshelf scanner. How does it work? The user films his bookshelves with his phone. And the application identifies and recognizes all the books. Actually, we have 95% of recognition in our lab, including the linen ones. So this is a real-time discovery of the application. So first thing, the application needs to say, okay, this is a book. Okay, this is nothing, this is a cat. And after that, for example, this one is not recognized. I think it's the cat. And after the difficult part was the linen books. But it works. It works less than the usual books, but it works. And after that, we have an algorithm that can choose the most accurate book with our recognition. Okay, some few words about Glyph. Glyph has been launched in France on February. We have this morning 35,000 users, 2,000 active users per day, and we have reached the million yesterday, 1 million books, corresponding to 200,000 unique titles. So this is how we get data. Thank you.
Very quick.
Any question? Yes, you have some screens of the application running.
Just out of curiosity, if I want to use it, how many languages do you recognize?
You don't have a question about GDPR or something?
No, 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 no.
For the time being, it's French, but we will launch Spanish and the English version in the next 6 months.
And the others?
In the next 6 months? And about the GDPR or HGPD, or however we call it, it's exactly the same answer that mojoreads. So don't ask.
Which kind of information do you scan? The title, the author? Which are the information that you put in the database?
We scan the title, the author, but also the shapes of the usual shapes of publishing images.
So you don't have any
colors.
connection with the books in print database?
Nope.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes. Yes, it's patented. Yes. No, license. Do you have a suggestion? No, not really. No, not now. But why not?
I have a question. Can
Yes.
you be more specific about the sharing of information between the different persons of the community? You went a bit quick on this.
Yes,
part.
because I was trying to focus on how to get data. Okay. Actually, there is 3 ways to use the application for yourself. So all your library is personal and private. Second circle is with your friends. So there is a friend system. So you share your library with your friends, then you get connections and suggestions of connections with your friends. Or the third one, with all people in the application, based on a geographical point, of course, because it's more efficient. And what we have discovered is that it's pretty well shared between the 3 circles. We have 30% of people in each type.
When the library is purely private. There is no recommendation, there is no interruption, because except if I read 2 books at the same time.
Okay. Yes. No, we have a recommendation system based on other libraries, but it's not. We don't use it. We don't use personal data. We use a twin system to recommend books. For example, if you have 200 books and I have 189 books, the exact same, I need to have the 201 from your library. I need to read it because we have the same signature of books. So this is the system we use to recommend books. Twin system. Yes. Exact.
So you have
Yes.
to.
I have a question.
What about readers who already have, say, they have a print library of printed books, but they also have a lot of e-books already?
Yes, actually it's really a strategy position. We wanted to begin with the paper book, and of course we will switch also to the e-books on the next step. So obviously we will activate the e-books. It's we already have done a POC of that. Yes, another question.
Perhaps you already told it, but just to be sure, the app is free and your business model is selling data, or is the app not free and is this your business model?
Our business model, we have two feet. The first is to selling books, just like mojoreads does. So we sell books with libraries. As you can see, you can find physical libraries with the real stock, with the stocks on real time. So you can push a reservation on your book, and then you get to the store and you get a book, and the library pays us. This is the first model. Second model is, of course, we're using digital platforms. And the third model is to sell not data, but statistics. We don't sell personal data, never, and we don't do any commercials or manipulating the timelines. I told you, just like mojoreads.
One question.
One more question.
For the real-time information about the book, the stock, you work with partners like TitLive or Place des Libraires or things like this? TitLive.
We are connected with TitLive, with Telecom, with BNF.
Okay. Thank you.
Actually, we're a customer of TitLive. I mean, we pay them.
One more question, Ivan?
No language. So I do have my own database with all my books. Can I somehow import it in your application?
CSV.
CSV.
It's not running now, but we will push it in further version.
Okay, I mean eventually.
Yes.
Fine. Yeah. But so
CSV,
I can,
Excel, even with other applications.
And the other way around, I can also export what you have into CSV.
So it's not planned for the moment, but why not? And also with the other platforms. For example, if you have your Amazon account, you can download your CSV and push it to our application directly.
Okay, sure.
CSV is the key. Yes, never.
So we have to thank our four people, four gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.